Hey everybody, welcome back to the Business and Stock Market News. I'm Jack Chapple. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. A billionaire that runs the largest hedge fund in the entire world gave his thoughts on whether the economy will crash in the next couple years. So it's really interesting. We're going to talk about that. Some really big news coming out of Soundcloud, actually. They fired almost half of their entire company. They announced layoffs for essentially 40 to 45% of their entire company. Boom, just gone like that. They're closing some big offices. We're going to get to that. Google announcing that it might go into the energy field. It's going to give a shot in clean energy. So we're going to talk about that. Some big jobs reports came out. We're also going to be talking about Amazon, stock market winners and losers, one funny story about tipping. And yeah, so anyways, let's get started here. I think we're going to start off with the SoundCloud here. So SoundCloud, as you know, it's a music streaming service, right? SoundCloud's a music streaming service. It competes with Spotify, Pandora, but let's face it, Pandora hasn't really been too good in the past few years. So, and it also competes now with Apple Music, which is the giant, that juggernaut that's essentially just wiping the others off the face of the cliff. So they announced that they are laying off 173 jobs, which is 40% of its company. And so people are like, wait, SoundCloud, I thought it was this big, massive company, thousands of people. Well, actually, if you look at their revenue is only it was only $25 million in 2015. And in 2016, it's estimated that it's somewhere between $50 and $60 million. So they're making a good revenue for only a couple hundred employees, a few hundred employees, but they're not that massive of a company whatsoever. So it's really quite interesting because they're along the same lines of Snapchat in my mind. So SoundCloud has 175 million monthly active users. That is a ton. So that's like Snapchat levels, right? So if you based it on users, this is a really good company. However, they aren't making money. They doubled their revenue, but they still aren't making any money. So why is this? Well, it's because the same problem that Snapchat has. Snapchat just can't find a way to essentially monetize their app. They're starting to find ways, sure, with some ads here, some shows there, and so on. But SoundCloud's the same thing. So what I think SoundCloud may have, it has a better chance at surviving compared to Snapchat, because Snapchat has to compete with Instagram and Facebook. SoundCloud, yeah, sure has to compete with Apple, but here's the deal, is that SoundCloud wants to go the monthly subscription route. It's trying to grow it as a monthly subscription service. It's also trying to get some ads in there and so on. And Snapchat, I mean, I don't think people are going to pay for it because a lot of it is just 15-year-old kids. They can't pay $5 a month. Well, they could, but I don't think that they're going to. So it's really interesting. I don't know what to think about SoundCloud. What do you guys think about SoundCloud right now? Do you think that they're going to be okay? Now, Spotify said that they want to IPO, but they've actually pumped the brakes on that a little bit here because of after Apple Music came out and has started just rocketing over the past year. Spotify is probably not going to IPO anytime soon. So some quick notes here on SoundCloud. To date, it has raised around $193 million. So $193 million in venture capital from essentially Universal, not Universal Studios, their parent company is Universal, Sony and Warner Music. So three massive companies have a really big say in SoundCloud right now. Let's see what else we have. This is actually a quote from an article here. So SoundCloud has been making a lot of efforts to build out revenue-generating services focused mainly around subscription tiers for premium content, special tiers for content creators, and advertising. However, it's not all clear how many users it has picked up in these areas or how well the ad play is working, as the company doesn't disclose a lot of its numbers, and it doesn't have to. It's a private company. So what do you guys think about SoundCloud? It's in a very competitive field, right? I mean, there's four giants, Apple Music, and sure there's a bunch of other ones that, like, didn't Jay-Z launch one of his? So it's competing with, Apple Music, Pandora, Spotify, and SoundCloud itself. So it's really interesting. I'm really curious to see what happens to this company. I mean, they said that they're doing this, it's not because they're not growing as a company, their revenue doubled. Their revenue doubled last year. From 2015 to 2016, it went from 25 to essentially 50 to 55 to $60 million. So it's not that, but they're just trying to cut down on expenses so that they can prove that they are profitable and they don't have to rely on debt. And so I think that this is a smart decision as a company. In my personal opinion, laying off, and they're closing two of their biggest offices in London and I forget the other one was San Francisco or somewhere like that. And so it's a smart decision as a company. You're trying to become profitable so you don't have to rely on capital and debt to survive. And so people are going to be up in arms like, oh, SoundCloud's just laying all these people off for for a few $1 million in profit. They're corporate and greedy and all that stuff. Well, no, this is how the company's going to survive. They may not be the big giant. They may not be the big giant of like Apple Music, but they may survive as a company. So that's how I see it. So I think we're going to move on to the next topic here. Google. Google wants to become an energy company. It's only a very small investment they started out with here, but they want to get into geothermal energy. And so there's a quote here. So on June 6th, the Moonshot division of Google parent company Alphabet, so they're called Alphabet, announced that it's launching a new geothermal company called Dandelion. They're calling it Dandelion, kind of a cool name. So they invested $2 million into this right now in the past month. So who knows? That's not really a ton, but they're just testing the waters to see if this could be a good route for renewable energy. And for those of you that don't know, roughly like 0.4% to 1% of all homes and cottages and luxury places, they are actually heated by geothermal energy. And so actually, when I was working in real estate for a long time as an agent, consultant, so on, was that, I still see it today when I talk to people as consultant, is that occasionally you'll see a cottage or a high-end home or something that's heated floors and heated just entire systems in the house, heating systems in the house that are completely done by geothermal energy. Now, legally, sometimes you have to actually be connected to the normal power grid, so you can't rely on it. But it's really interesting. People don't really know that a lot of homes are actually powered by geothermal. And so Google is trying to get into that, trying to tap into the geothermal energy to power your home. So what do you guys think of that? Would you ever want a Google, geothermal house? I totally would. I actually was looking at a place recently, geothermal energy, super expensive. I'm not going to buy it, but it's really cool. It's nice. People don't really realize that, solar could completely power the entire planet. So could geothermal. Wind probably couldn't. Maybe it could. I don't really know. But geothermal is just as viable as solar. And it might even be more viable. Well, it might not be more viable because maybe it could be. I don't really know, because I'm thinking about like the Arctic and the South Pole, because they're 6 months of the year, sure, you can get some solar energy, and there's 6 months you can't. And even then, like in Alaska, it's still cloudy all the time, right? So geothermal might work there in areas like that, which don't have access to the typical solar clean energy. So that's really interesting. That's the very first thing that I thought of. So if Google can get into this, they could be the Tesla of like this geothermal energy, that new tech company that kind of is trying to revolutionize the industry. So saying that there's already a bunch of big tech companies out there that are doing geothermal, but Google's just trying to get into it. So that was some big news. So the next thing I want to talk about is jobs. A job report came out, or the jobs report came out, and it blew away most Wall Street investors. So people were expecting employment gains of about 175,000 in the United States alone, and reports came in that it was 222,000. So Trump actually leaked this data a few days ago. Trump he's really funny with that stuff. I think it was 3 or 4 days ago, he tweeted out something like, amazing job reports, or something like, you'll be surprised, or something like that. And so, well, we were. And so that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies had good days today. Actually, stock market as a whole was fairly good. All the sectors were up, apart from a few were down in a very minor way. We're going to get to that closer to the end here. So some more numbers here. The unemployment rate went up 0.1%, so that's not really big news here. The average hourly wage was 2.5% more than it was in a year earlier at this time. So again, that's good. Wages growing by 2.5%. Essentially, that's really good. So people saw this as a positive here. This next number, the labor force participation rate. And this is something that I have a problem with. So everyone was saying that this was great, and maybe it could be, that it's at 62.8%. And that's up from 62.7%. So for those of you that don't know this number, people think that when there's an unemployment rate of 4.4%, people think that out of all the people that are able to work, and are completely healthy, they think that, okay, only 4% can't find jobs. That's not the case. That's not how you should look at this number. So 62.8% of the country is either unemployed or employed, all of the healthy people. Okay, so anyone that's above the age of 16 that is able to work and doesn't have disabilities and isn't going to school and isn't going to college, isn't retired, and so on, they fall under this category here. And so out of the people that are able to work and don't have any other stuff to do, and just out of all the people that are able to work, only 62.8% actually do. And 37.2% don't, because they either don't try, which is, you know, that's okay. Like there's certain people that don't try, right? For whatever reason, they get discouraged. They've been working for a long time and then they quit. I mean, I would never do that, but I kind of understand it. And then, you know, some other people are like the stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, and so on. So they're not involved in this. So essentially, if you were to throw in the entire population, less than half of the country works. And out of the working population, there's only about 58% actually work out of the people that are able to and are currently working. Because if you include unemployment, the number's about 58%. Isn't that really weird how they skew those numbers like that? There's almost as many people that are able to work and don't than there are people that are able to work and do. So when you look at some unemployment numbers, just take that into account. Because, I don't know, I think I made a video on this a long time ago, the true unemployment rate. And it's closer to people, if you include people that don't want to work, it's closer to 40% than it is 4%. So I always get interested when I hear numbers like that. So we're going to move on here to the billionaire Ray Dalio. By the way, I'll link to a great YouTube video he talks about. It's a 30-minute video. If you need to understand the economy, I'll link it down in the description below. It's amazing. He narrates the entire thing, describes how the economy works and why it crashes, why it goes up, how it got set up this way. And seriously, like if you're just starting out investing, or even if you're an intermediate investor or just learning about business, seriously, great video. I watched this, I think it was a couple of years ago, and it was just really well done. But Ray Dalio, he owns the most valuable hedge fund in the entire world. You have to have a net worth of at least $1 billion to talk to this guy. So I'm going to say a few quotes here from an article. So the founder and chief investment officer of the world's biggest hedge fund said Thursday in a commentary posted to LinkedIn that central bankers have clearly and understandably signaled the end. Oh, they have a spelling mistake in the article. Signaled the end of the 9 year of monetary easing is coming. So the end of this 9-year monetary easing since the recession, it's coming to an end. They are shifting strategy and are now focused on raising interest rates at a pace that keeps growth and inflation in balance, risking the next downturn if they get it wrong. All right, so that was the very first thing, and I'm going to give my opinion in a second here. The next thing is, in May, Dalio posted a commentary that said he was worried about the future, concerned that the magnitude of the next downturn could produce much greater social and political conflict than currently exists. Dalio ends by saying he doesn't see a big debt bubble about to burst like we did in 2007, 2008, but largely because of the balance sheet deleveraging that came about in the last few years. But he said, we do see an increasingly intensifying big squeeze. So what does this mean to me? What this means to me is he doesn't see a big mortgage crisis in 2007. So for those of you that don't remember, the reason why the economy crashed was essentially because mortgages were being sold off. Now, there was a few other reasons too, but people were being given some subprime mortgages. And eventually, once a few people couldn't pay, banks had to default, interest rates went up, more people defaulted, more banks defaulted, insurance companies defaulted because they would buy the loans. But essentially, you know, loans that were worth $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 were all being defaulted on. That's the reason why the economy crashed. And so what Dalio is saying here is that that's not going to be the case this time. Banks have been heavily regulated, although Trump wants to stop that. Banks have been heavily regulated since then, and so they haven't been giving out large loans to people that couldn't afford it, which is what the bank should be doing. And so what this means is that I think that if there is some sort of bubble forming, it's not in that $200,000 to $500,000 mortgage crisis. It's going to be in the credit cards. It's going to be in the auto loans, the $10,000 to $50,000 range. Student loans are a little bit tougher because they're subsidized by the government, and they're a whole different story here. You can't bankrupt them, right? But that's where it's going to be coming from. It's from a smaller debt area than it was last time. So that's what I'm going to take from this. He doesn't see any bubble right now. That's what he's saying. He says that the next recession could be happening in the next couple of years, depending on what the Federal Reserve does and so on. But for now, he sees a steady growth. Actually, he had a quote in here, which I think it was like, we're going to keep dancing, right? The investors are going to keep dancing, but we're going to be moving closer to the exit door. We're very close to the exit door right now, is what he's saying. So he's expecting, just like me, the end of this economic growth cycle, as I've been saying, is going to end in the next year and a half. By the end of 2018, that's when I put the limit. That's what I've been saying since 2016. The end of 2018, and if I'm wrong, I'll come out and say it that I'm wrong. But I gave this 2-year window of this good economy ending, this growth economy ending. So we're going to see. I think that he agrees with me on this, and he also says that it's going to be it's not going to be a falling off a cliff like 2 weeks like it was last time. He thinks it's going to be a steady decline. Essentially what he's saying too, because there's no bubble. It's going to be a steady decline in the long run. So, but for now, he's going to keep dancing. He's going to keep getting gains, and he's not out of the market right now. So we're going to move on to the next thing I want to talk about here, which is Amazon. So Amazon, there was a few pieces of minor news that came out today about Amazon, so I thought I'd mention it. So a report came out saying how much share of the entire retail sector that Amazon has. And people don't really know this. It's not as much as most people think. People think Amazon's this big giant of the world right now, and it is. It's a giant, right? It is. But it only takes up 5% of the market share of the retail world. And that's not even including groceries and food. It only takes up 5%. However, we've been seeing it like this. They've been taking up more market share over the past 5 years, and other retail companies have been going down. And so that's what we've been seeing. There's actually a nice graph that I saw on CNBC, and to put this in perspective too, how much market share they've been gaining over the past 5 years. It's been absolutely insane. So they also mentioned, there's also another article that came out on CNBC as well, same site, was that they mentioned that they were not the only bidders for Whole Foods. Actually, there were 6 other bidders, and one of which was serious. One of which was allegedly the supermarket chain Albertsons, who made a decent bid. However, Amazon made a better pitch. So Amazon originally went in, so they ended up buying Whole Foods for $45 per share. However, they went in with a bid, it was $42 per share they ended up getting. So Amazon went in with a bid of $41, and Whole Foods wanted $45, and they ended up compromising on $42 per share. So a little bit of negotiating there. Both sides didn't get what they wanted, and that's usually what happens in a negotiation for a sale of business. I mean, you see this on shows like Shark Tank and stuff all the time about how, one person wants $100,000 for 20% of the company, and the shark is only willing to give $50,000 for 20%, and they end up at 75. That's usually what happens, or 70%, although usually the sharks have a little bit more leverage, although not always. Investors, it depends. Sometimes they can have less leverage, sometimes they can have more. It all depends. But anyways, I thought that was interesting. So it was just released that, there were other companies wanting to buy Whole Foods, but Amazon was actually the best bidder. And I can't help but wonder, one massive company was not disclosed. I can't help but wonder if that was Walmart. Like, I made a video on that, about how Walmart might put a bid for Whole Foods just to stop Amazon from getting it. I wonder if Walmart did make a bid. Quite interesting. So we're going to move on to just a few more topics here, and then we're going to close out this video. So the U.S. Labor Department also announced that early on Friday that the construction industry added 16,000 jobs in June. That's usually a good sign that, the whole real estate and real estate construction development is going well when there's jobs added into that field. And so this was compared to 9,000 jobs added in May in this same industry, and 0 job growth from April and June. So this is a very good sign. This was very surprising to Wall Street investors. And that's one of the reasons why one of our stock market winners today was essentially the entire real estate development field and construction field. So one of them was actually D.R. Horton Inc. They were the biggest winner today. They were up 3.77% today. Excuse me. Simply because of this really surprising news that has come from came from the U.S. Labor Department. So again, the entire real estate development was up today, so that's good. Let's see what else I want to talk about here. We're going to move on to the sectors here and the stock market winners and losers. However, I want to talk about this really funny story. So there's this basketball player named Andre Roberson. I think it's Roberson, right? He plays for I think it was the Oklahoma City Thunder. And so he just signed a 3-year, $30 million contract like 3 days ago. Or 4 days ago. And, you know, he celebrated. He went out to a place and bought a very expensive bottle of wine. And that's what happened to him. But this actually didn't come out right away. So he went to this place and he spent $487.13 on whatever. People didn't know what this was yet. And so he was celebrating, and then the waiter posted a picture on Twitter saying that here it is, get paid $30 million for 3 years and tips this, you piece of trash. And so the tip on a $487.13 bill was $13.97. So I have a few opinions on this that I want to talk about. So the very first thing was that, you know, sure, that's a low tip when I first saw it. Now I dug into the story a little bit more here. But he was clearly trying to make this an even $500 bill. And the funny thing is that the bill actually came out to $501.10 or something like that. Like, he was way off on rounding it out to 500. He must have been a little bit tipsy there. He was trying to make it $500, but yeah, I think it was $500.10 or $500.01. So that was funny in itself. But the second thing was that apparently Andre Roberson replied here and said, he tweeted out, "Shouldn't have had to tip you. It was just a bottle at a bar. There was no service whatsoever. Now I can see if it was a club, you reaching, bro." So I have a couple thoughts on this. Is that, okay, you know, if you just made $30 million, signed a $30 million guaranteed contract, so you're getting that money regardless of if you get hurt, unless you retire, you're getting all of that money. So I would probably be a little bit more generous in that scenario, but why are you buying a $487 bottle of wine in the first place? This is what happens when people come into a bunch of money. They just start spending it like this. Okay, I've seen worse. I've seen people go to the club and get $20,000 after they sign a pro contract. However, you know, this is still a large amount of money here. I also understand his position too, because if you're just buying something from a bar, you know, why does it matter that you have to tip 10 to 15%? He would have had to tip $50 instead of 13, right? So at the end of the day, what do you guys think about this topic here? At the end of the day, I don't really care. I mean, it was just a funny story. I wouldn't do what he did. I wouldn't have got a $500 bottle of wine in the first place, so I don't really know what I would have done. But what are your thoughts on this entire thing? Do you think it's funny? Do you think that he should have tipped more, considering that he's going to be making $10 million per year? Anyways, we're going to move on here to the stock market winners and losers, but I'm actually interested to see what you guys have to say about that. That was actually really, really funny. Last thing, yeah, so stock market winners and losers here. So we're going to rattle some of them off here. I mentioned D.R. Horton, the construction company. So Google was a winner. Google up 1.4%. Amazon winner up 1.4%. Tesla rebounded. By the way, story I didn't mention, Tesla released some more news that they, because everyone was crapping on them the past few days, that they released some news saying that they announced their in-transit numbers. So the amount of cars they have in transit that are to be delivered, that are on their way to being delivered in June. So normally they were just saying the cars that were delivered, showed up, and people paid for, and they also announced the numbers that were in transit, and this number was a few thousand cars, which for whatever reason shot this stock up 1.5% today. A few thousand cars added almost, $500 million to their market cap. They're so weird, that stock, man. They're so weird. So NVIDIA, another winner, up 2.29%. The entire tech sector was up today, so we're going to talk about that in a second here. Netflix was up 2.69%. McDonald's up 2%. Man, that stock that's a little bit scary right now. They've been going like this. I mean, I trust them. They're not going to go out of business anytime soon. I would buy them. It's just, man, they've been going straight up. Twitter up 0.56% here. Let's see, do I have any other ones here? Texas Instruments here, I wanted to mention. They had a good day. Texas Instruments up 2.11%. And some stock market losers here was Costco. So Costco, after all this news about retail and all this stuff coming out here, all these articles started bashing Costco, and now Costco is down 1.9% today. And let's check them out for 1 month. In the past month, they've been down 15% in the past month. This is after the Amazon Whole Foods stuff. So they've been down 15%. So that's obviously, not too good. I wouldn't buy them, but saying that, they're still producing profits. People don't know this. Costco is really profitable. They are, and so they're just scared because Amazon, like Costco's not going bankrupt anytime soon. It's just they might in the future once Amazon takes over, but Costco for now is still solid. It's just people are nervous because Amazon. So although saying that, I was looking at this here, and they had a similar downtrend August 5th of last year to November 4th, and then they rebounded. So Costco might be a good company to buy, to be honest here. I don't like giving stock tips, but I mean, they've had 4 major drops in the past 3 years, similar to this, and they've rebounded each time, so they might be a buy. Now let's see here. Let's see, another loser, Samsung. So it was announced today that Samsung is upping its expectations on its profits, and it might actually make more profits this quarter or this year than Apple. And they've come out and said that, like, you're going to be surprised with our profits and our revenue numbers coming out here, and raise your expectations. And after they said that, the stock dropped 0.42%, because that's just how the news works, I guess. Sometimes people just underreact, and sometimes people overreact. So what do you guys think of Samsung as a whole right now? I think that obviously they're doing really well. Apple's making them rich. Apple's using them. By the way, Samsung is, I heard that they're converting into like a semiconductor kind of company. I don't know the truth to that. I should dig into Samsung a little bit more here. But I know that they're obviously, the bread and butter is their tech stuff, but I heard that recently that they were doing semiconductor. Maybe I should just look that up quickly so I'm not just completely BSing what I heard here. Samsung has long been a major manufacturer of electronic components such as lithium-ion battery, semiconductors, flash memory. Okay, so I'm fairly certain that they are making the semiconductors for Apple. I'm not 100% sure on that, actually. Maybe I could look that up right here. Yeah, so they make it for Apple and Sony and Nokia. So the better Apple does, the better Samsung does, even though Samsung's a competer in the phone industry. Isn't that funny how that works? So I'm not BSing on that. I remembered that from whatever I read about years ago. So let's see. Last thing I want to talk about here, touch on the sectors as a whole. Let's see here. Can we go back here to the sectors? So consumer staples were up 0.83% today. Consumer discretionaries were up 0.83% today. Staples essentially stayed at zero. Energy was essentially at zero. Financials up 0.56%. Health up 0.57%. Industrials up 0.75%. Materials up 0.5%. I mean, this was a really good day. Real estate up 0.65%. Technology up 1.25%. Utilities were essentially near zero. And telecom was down 0.38%. So all in all, you probably made money today. Most people made money today if you're an investor in the US stock market. So that's going to wrap this video up. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You guys can check out my stock market program in the link below. I uploaded 4 videos, I think 2 days ago, some updated stuff. So you can check that out. You can check out my portfolio and so on. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people, and I'll see you guys in the next video.